boards to drive multi-year strategy, governance alignment, and systems change, with a focus on peer-led, recovery-oriented models that advance equity and community wellness. Her work sits at the intersection of data-informed decision-making, policy innovation, and human-centered care. A certified peer specialist, she brings a unique perspective on how intelligent systems, including AI, can responsibly support workforce effectiveness, service quality, and sustainable mental health.
Good morning. Thank you very much for that introduction. First and foremost, being introduced, Modupe Mujota is my name. I work with Baltic Street Wellness Solutions. I'm one of 2 Chief Strategy Officers that pilot this ship along with our CEO. And we're happy to represent the largest peer-run and peer-led organization here in New York State, as well as the country. Thank you very much to the initiatives of Change and Ficum Trust, my friend, Dr. Jumoke Giwa, for the opportunity to speak. And before I dive into things, 2 disclaimers. 1, the images are AI generated, so we're not AI phobic. And secondly, quick question. I just wanted to ask by show of hands real quick, how many people are familiar with peer work and peer specialization in mental and behavioral health? Please just raise your hand if you're familiar with peer work. Not many. Okay, great. Thank you. Peer work basically is the use of lived experience to support the recovery journey of other people that are either starting or still embroiled in their challenges with mental health or behavioral health. That said, my peer journey is twofold. I personally have my perspective with respect to recovery, and then I have the privilege to be a parent to a child that lives with autism. So I also have that peer experience by proxy. But talking about AI, my title today is Human First, Mental Health Care and Belonging in the Era of AI and Robotics. And a lot has been said already today. Typically, when we talk about AI, we often start with terms like productivity, innovation, and sometimes disruption. But today I want to start with somewhere else. I want to start with humanity and its bedrock, self-worth. And we've probably heard a bit about it today in varying degrees, because self-worth is the foundation, after all, of humanity and connectivity. And connection itself has a lot to do with how we fit into life and our environments, aka belonging. Belonging is a fundamental aspect of mental health, and that is where I'll be centering our conversation on today. If AI accelerates without anchoring to human worth, we risk increasing isolation, identity disruption, and quiet despair, even in the middle of technological brilliance. So even though I said AI and robotics, I want us to think of the ecosystem of technology and technological advancement as a whole. Today, my presentation will move us through a simple arc. It starts with self-worth, as I said before. We'll examine how AI influences it positively and negatively. We've already heard about some celebrated uses of AI and some of the concerns around AI. We'll look at it a little bit more with respect to how it affects feelings of self-worth and ultimately mental health and wellness. We'll also explore what the patterns show using a tool of the peer support movement, the wellness wheel, and we'll end with self-governance, because after all, being human first means responsibility and not necessarily resistance. So self-worth. I'll share a little story about my personal journey. I used to be in investment banking. I was the CEO of a boutique investment firm. Very high-flying, very successful, large portfolio, all of that good stuff. And then I made one bad investment that went south, and my board had me they were calling for my head. I didn't realize until that occasion just how much I had defined my self-worth in terms of my productivity, my achievements, my accomplishments. But having a 5-month hiatus from that responsibility, I had a meltdown. My first experience of what a mental health breakdown could be, and I was confused. I realized in that moment that I had defined my entire self-worth by virtue of my achievements and accomplishments in this field of endeavor. And I promised myself, having come out of that, having recovered from that experience, that I would never allow my value, my personal self-worth, to be determined or framed by productivity. Self-worth is not ego. Self-worth is the internal belief that I have value. Even when I'm not producing, even when I'm not optimizing or outperforming, there's intrinsic value. And AI quietly fosters this in 3 ways, and it can challenge that as well. Productivity comparison, as machines are now, they're outperforming us all the time. This can invoke thinking like, if I am slower, does it mean I'm less valuable? The identity displacement that can also follow. People who define themselves by their skill mastery now see that that skill is replicable in seconds by a machine. And lastly, the algorithmic validation culture, where our ideas, our creativity, even our emotions are filtered through engagement metrics and AI-driven feedback loops. You know, sometimes you're scrolling on the internet and you're surprised why certain imagery is coming up on your feed. It's basically the algorithm defining who you are and how you integrate or relate with the world around you. And so, like I said before, self-worth is not ego. It is the internal belief that I have value. Before the machines, I was. While the machines are here with us, I am. When the machines are gone, or whatever next evolution we see, I will be. When self-worth, however, drops, belonging becomes harder because it's difficult to see yourself as valuable to others if I'm not valuable to myself. And when belonging drops, mental health declines. AI doesn't itself create insecurity, but it amplifies existing vulnerabilities. How? It increases, it has the potential, I shouldn't say it does of its own, but it has the potential to increase anxiety. We heard this morning when Heather spoke about aging and how there's an isolation that can come from feeling not a part of this revolution that's happening, or things that are moving too quickly. The imposter syndrome, where I'm comparing myself and my outcome and productivity with what AI can do. And I'm beginning to question whether I'm valued in my position. Withdrawal, like the young lady in the imagery. When you find yourself not able to hold a conversation because you're stuck behind your screen. Reduce social risk-taking. The fear of going out, venturing out. The fear of feeling disconnected because things are moving so quickly. And isolation that is ultimately masked as digital engagement. All of these are not the creation of AI itself. It is how it has amplified the existing insecurities that we have. And yet this is not necessarily a dystopian story, because there are also very powerful examples of the value of AI and how it has influenced and made us achieve and accomplish so much more than we could be individually capable of. So let's look at some of these patterns. And what did I do? I looked at some of the top 5 most celebrated cases of AI success when it comes to managing mental health, and also paralleled that with the concerns or areas where AI seems to have failed people. And I say again, please, I'm not taking any position for or against, because after all, it is AI that makes it possible for me to be in New Zealand with you this evening, though I'm seated in the cold weather here in New York. There are celebrated uses of AI companions that have reduced acute loneliness, speech-to-text tools that empower people with disabilities, such as my son, who has challenges with reading and so is able to speak into his phone and communicate his thoughts via text messaging and the likes of that use. Peer chat platforms, expanding access to support in rural and far-reaching locations. Predictive tools that help identify crisis and can help to estimate when crisis will precipitate. These uses increase agency. They restore participation. They reinforce dignity. But as I said before, there are also cautionary patterns that have emerged. People are replacing human vulnerability with AI responsiveness. We heard that it's been used to, sort through a web of emotions that we're finding it difficult to contextualize, and it's able to help us to sort through that. Employers using monitoring systems that erode psychological safety. Bias embedded in algorithms, that was spoken to earlier as well. And these biases reinforce inequity. Overdependence, reducing distress tolerance, because now we're a quick-paced generation that wants solutions quickly, and therefore our tolerance limits have declined. Here's a common thread across both platforms, whether successes or cautionary patterns. AI amplifies your intention. We heard about intentionality with the use of AI earlier on. AI learns you. It is nothing of its own, but it learns you. And so it behooves us to learn AI. If we design the use of AI from insecurity, we amplify insecurity. And if we design and use it from dignity, we will amplify dignity. AI basically echoes the voices deep within each user. So let's dig a little deeper into what lies within us. And that brings me to the wellness wheel. This is perhaps one of the most fundamental tools that we use in the peer world. And it's the brainchild of Peggy Schwalbrick in 2006, amplified by Samsha, and it's called the 8 Dimensions of Wellness. I call it the framework for the pursuit of happiness, because if you pursue some level of finding yourself within these different dimensions and increasing your vulnerabilities within them so that you can influence or grow your influence, you kind of live a more robust existence. So this wellness wheel, and we'll come back to it, does AI, I've struck out my use of, does AI strengthen or weaken the dimensions of wellness? And I struck out my use of because when you remove yourself and abdicate the responsibility for the outcomes of AI, then you can say, does AI itself strengthen or weaken? But when you put yourself into the equation, then it becomes your use, your personal agency, and your administration of this very effective tool. Where the emotional dimension is concerned, does this tool increase emotional awareness or my emotional numbness? In the social dimension, does it facilitate real connection or does it replace it? When I work, does it enhance my contribution or does it define my worth by my output? Intellectually, does it expand curiosity or reduce my ability to think critically? Physically, some of us may have heard about the Peloton story that ceased to be about the exercise bike and more about building community through physical activity because of the connections that people can make both with the facilitator of the cycling class and with other people in the class. So physically, is it increasing sedentary isolation? Because I could use it in that regard, or I could sit on my toilet bowl and doom scroll for the next 2 hours till my feet are numb. Environmentally, what systems and data ecosystems am I participating in? Financially, who benefits economically from my engagements? And last but by no means least, spiritually, does my use align with my values? Is it really AI though, or is it the user behind it? Remember, it amplifies whatever it is that you feed it. AI is not a solution. That was said earlier by Rochelle. It's not a solution. It is a tool that can deliver solutions. So you can trust AI, but you must always verify, because AI makes mistakes. Take a look at the wellness wheel. I said 8 dimensions, did I not say? And yet we have 9 quadrants there, 9 segments there. Intellectual is repeated, and I've left it there intentionally because I told you at the beginning, these images were generated by AI. Regardless of how many times I asked AI to correct this diagram and give me 8 dimensions of wellness, it would accept that it had made an error, and yet it would regenerate it And it kept duplicating different aspects. Sometimes it would be the intellectual, it would duplicate. Sometimes it was the social. So AI can give you results, but there are risks that it can give you wrong results. And risks, once they precipitate, involve and affect real lives. So the use of AI and our stewardship of AI is fundamental. The distinction of lived experience or lived expertise is a superpower, and that is the superpower of a peer support worker. When applied through AI, it has the capacity to deliver unimaginable recovery and wellness results. A key strength in peer work is the ability for empathy, making others truly seen, truly heard, and truly understood. Is the oxygen for the soul. Through engagement and leveraging lived experience, we establish deep communities with humanity and vulnerability. We say it's okay to be the person you are on the inside without fear of judgment. Peers facilitate access to depths of the human spirit through connection, belonging, and community. All this facilitated by the sharing of lived experience, and that is something AI does not have, lived experience. Technology cannot reach it. It simply does not have the capacity to do so. There is intuition and learned skills through the labor and triumph of each individual's recovery that is uniquely a human experience, and that cannot be coded. And so peers can model using AI in ways that support reflection, expand access, reduce barriers, maintain human contact, and reinforce self-determination. All of that leads to the power of self-governance. Self-governance is not restriction, it's intentionality. And I've chosen to look at it from a tripod perspective because I've infused lived experience, the peer perspective. There's the user perspective, and we'll also see the AI creator perspective. All of which, I'm saying, takes us from self-worth to self-governance, if we're to recognize humans as being first. From a peer perspective, this means we teach digital boundaries, the same way we teach emotional boundaries. Rochelle spoke about it as well earlier. How much time are you spending? What intentionality are you bringing to the use of AI? What are your expectations of the outcomes of that use so that you can query the system? We model reflective AI use. We ensure AI never replaces human presence in moments that require attunement. But AI gives us a unique power to expand access and to put services more directly in the hands of those that are using them. There's one thing we say in the peer support world, which is we meet people where they're at. AI can help us to meet people where they're at. From a user perspective, ask yourself why. Why am I turning to AI right now? Am I avoiding discomfort or enhancing capacity? Am I protecting my autonomy or am I avoiding human connection? Being human first means innovation anchored in worth, autonomy anchored in responsibility. And let's go to the business side. AI creators and investors, they're after all in it largely for the money, even though many would deny that. Yes, if you solve a problem for your world, it will reward you with a profit. But profit should not be the motive. Solution should be. And so from an AI creator and investor perspective, I ask for design for dignity, not addiction. Build bias auditing into the systems. Protect user data sovereignty, because with the rate at which we're sharing information, we're exposing people without their permission. And as we know, AI is not about opting in anymore. It's through everything that we do. You can't opt out if you tried unless you live off-grid. Measure success beyond engagement time. It should be impact-driven. That you can does not always mean that you should, and therein lies the why. Restraint is a critical part of responsibility, and profit should never drive motive, not exclusively at least. If it begins with self-worth, it ends with self-governance for all concerned. Again, I say, human first means innovation anchored in worth and autonomy anchored in responsibility. So, human first is not anti-technology. It is pro-dignity, and dignity requires responsibility. As an organization, peer-led, peer-run, we're always going to be heavily invested and champions of the individuals whose lives are being impacted by mental health concerns, behavioral concerns, and the like. And we'll always take an interest in things that put humanity first. We'll be advancing the conversation during our Baltic Street Wellness Solution annual symposium that holds every year. This year it's on the 5th and 6th of November. We invite you all to be a part of it. And our focus is on the roots of recovery, reclaiming human connection in the age of AI. This is too fundamental. Like I said, you're opted in. You don't have an opportunity to opt out of this technological revolution that we're seeing. We'll be taking a deep dive into technology, artificial intelligence, mental health, and the human connection because it is that important. But we have a firm conviction that both things can work together effectively. Let's keep the conversations going and shape policy. Let's promote communities of best practice, not just of practice, but of best practice, and strengthen the value systems and timeless principles that should govern, support, and drive the evolution of technology in mental health. I took the liberty of creating a personal toolkit in its simplest form, and I encourage you to use it and share with your networks. I'm most concerned about the younger generations that have not had the privilege and opportunity to have their thinking and critical reasoning completely mature because they can't interrogate necessarily. So it's important for us to share these tools with them as they are pretty much living through this evolution without much recovery time to question. AI is no longer a choice, it is imminent. We have all been unwittingly opted in one way or the other, like I said before. If we cannot retreat, we certainly should not surrender. We should seek collaborative means that secure us all. After all, it's said that injury to one is injury to all. Let us not forget that we are human first. I thank you for your time and your attention, and if I have a minute more, I would love to share the governance worksheet with you. It asks very simple questions. Self-worth check. When I use AI, how do I feel? Do I compare my values to AI performance? If AI did not exist, how would I define my worth? And then it uses the wellness wheel to say, rate your current AI use across the following dimensions. What is a strength, or how you feel neutral, or what is a weakness? And where is the imbalance? The boundaries and intentions. What role do I want AI to play in my life? What role will I not allow it to replace? Which responsibilities won't I abdicate, or will I not abdicate? My personal AI boundaries will be this, and one human connection I will prioritize this week. And it just asks for your commitment thereafter. I commit to using AI in ways that strengthen my dignity, support others' autonomy, increase access without replacing connection, and align with my values. And any other areas that are important to you, of course. But once again, I thank you for your time this evening, and I look forward to hearing more from you.